Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Pages to Pixels podcast. I'm Keerthana,
I'm Rohan.
and this week we're talking about All We Imagine as Light. Rohan, do you want to tell everyone what it's about?
Sure. So the IMDb logline reads, in Mumbai, nurse Prabha's routine is troubled when she receives an unexpected gift from her estranged husband. Her younger roommate, Anu, tries in vain to find a spot in the city to be intimate with her boyfriend. So this movie has been getting a ton of acclaim. I first heard of it when it won the Grand Prix at, is it Cannes or Cannes? How do you say it?
I mean, I say
Uh,
can't, but you know,
yeah, I've heard
Can
both.
or
I'll
con?
say Cannes. Okay.
yeah.
So it won the Grand Prix at Cannes, which is the second highest award that you can win, or for a
Mhm.
film at least.
Mhm.
Um, the Palme d'Or going to Honora, I believe. And that's kind of when this movie came on my radar. And then ever since Cannes, it's been it's been doing very well in film festivals around the world. Uh, just I believe there's a film fest, the New York Film Festival gave it Best International Picture.
Mhm.
I believe BFI, the British Film Institute, they did a ranking for the best films of the year, and this came in number one
Ooh.
in the entire world. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if you haven't heard of it, uh, the India Film Board did not select this to be their official entry for the Oscars.
I feel like maybe the thought process was that because like getting an Oscar is very much a campaign, right? Like you have to come out here to LA and like do screenings and kind of hope that members of the jury see your film. And I
Yep.
wonder if maybe the logic was that like Amir Khan had more pull and he would be able to get more members of the jury. Because outside of that, I can't really think of like a reason as to why this wasn't um pitched instead of Lapata Ladies, because while Lapata Ladies was like it was really successful.
Yeah,
I
it's a
feel
great
like
movie.
yeah, but I just feel like this is I don't know, um, much more of like this is a better representation, I think, of the reality of our country and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah, it's also, I mean, film, the camera just moved. Uh, going beyond just the representation of the reality of the country, I
Mhm.
think if you are the film board, you need to go with the movie that you think has a shot of getting nominated or winning.
Right.
Um, I think this movie had, I think this movie would have probably ended up getting nominated had
Mhm.
India submitted it,
Submitted it. Hmm.
and I think it had a good chance of winning also.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, Lop Ladies, I don't think is going to be nominated at all,
Hmm.
and I think I think there's a couple reasons. There's of course there's the like you said, Ahmed Khan. Hell, when you're talking about campaigning, who knows what campaigning happened within India?
Yeah.
Um, and but I think there's also the question of language. Um, generally, generally the Oscars do, or not the Oscars, the Indian Film Board will nominate uh, Hindi films or at least North Indian films.
Yep.
And then for me, I think the biggest is honestly the presentation because I think Lapita Ladies presents a more sanitized version of India.
Hmm.
Um, and I know Lapita Ladies is about the problems that women face in society, but that's where it is. It's society, and it takes place in more of rural India. So someone who is an outsider that doesn't really know Indian cinema. So someone who's an outsider that doesn't really know India very well, and they're kind of just watching these two movies. They might watch Laptop 80s and they might equate um, the thinking of those people that are in the movie similar to like how we see the Midwest here, where it's you got the coasts that are more liberal, and then the Midwest, which is very, very conservative. That's how they might equate it. While um, well, this film, it doesn't present India that way. There's a lot of um, it takes place in Mumbai, and there
Mhm.
is so it shows that these issues are they're more systemic, and
Mhm.
I think that right now there is a little bit of uh, self consciousness with what they want to present to
Yeah.
the rest of the world.
No, I think that's a very well, I mean, that's a very very smart way to put it. Um, like those motivations definitely make sense. Um, Outside of all of this, I thought the movie was fantastic.
Oh yeah,
I
I
really,
love this
really,
movie.
really enjoyed it. I think one of the reasons it works so well for me is because, yes, it was realistic, but also I think it was realistic in its portrayal of like how we all have large lives and our problems are parts of our lives. Because very often what happens is when you watch a film, um, for the purposes of conflict in the film and for drama, the issue of the film is what takes up the character's entire like existence on screen, like in the story.
Yep.
But here I thought like the thing that they played so smartly was like all the three women have things going on in their lives, but then those things don't like that's not their whole life. Like they still like get up and go to work. They still like go about their routine. They still like do um
Yeah.
what needs to be done. And that I think is what like kind of really stood out to me because we rarely get to see something like that in films.
Yeah, I mentioned this um during our ranking for the top movies of the year. Um, but watching this movie, and I think you had no, I think
At that point, I hadn't watched it.
yes, at that point you hadn't watched it, but you had mentioned this to me after you had seen it, which there is almost a documentary feeling to this film.
Hmm.
It doesn't necessarily feel like you're watching actors playing a role and delivering dialogue that is written because some and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with those kind of movies, but you can tell when there is dialogue that sounds like how people speak
Hmm.
in real life, and then there's dialogue that uh, I know in India we kind of refer to as filmy dialogue.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, this movie didn't really have that. It genuinely
Yeah.
felt like I was watching real people go about their lives. And I
Hmm.
think there's something special in that.
Yeah, I mean the performances too were really really good.
Yeah.
That one the lady who plays the other friend, the third friend, isn't she also in Lapata Ladies?
Yes.
So she's basically in like two films that
Yep.
are Oscar contenders. That's great. Good for her. Um, yeah, I thought all the performances were solid. I thought especially the main character, Nurse Prabha, the actress who played her, it was I thought one of the best performances I've seen in a long, long time. I
Yeah.
feel like I've said this. This is interesting because like I feel like as I'm talking about it, I feel inclined to compare it to Lapata Ladies for no reason, really. Um, but like
It's yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
no, but like my I was going to say that like I saw Lapata Ladies and I was like, wow, these are like really good performances. And then I watched this and I was like, oh, there's like so much more here.
Yeah. Again, Lap of the Ladies, it feels like actors delivering
Hmm.
performances versus it feels like these
Persons.
actors have just become the characters.
Hmm.
But I know you mentioned it's and this episode we don't want to make it into a just a all
Comparison.
imagine versus Lap of the Ladies thing, but I think the reason why you keep bringing up Lap of the Ladies is just because of the fumble by the film board. It's hard not to it's hard not to think about this movie without thinking about Lap of the Ladies, and it's hard not
Hmm.
to think about Lap of the Ladies now
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
watching All We
Comparing it.
Imagine or
Yeah.
thinking about All We Imagine. I think if I've and it kind of hurts both films because
Hmm.
of course All We Imagine now it's gonna get snubbed.
Yeah.
And potentially less people are going to watch it because if this
Hmm.
movie had gotten that nomination, I think more people would be like, "Hey, maybe I should check that out."
Yeah.
But now less people are going to watch this movie. And now a lot of people cannot watch Lapaladies without without thinking about this one.
Yeah.
It's
No. Yeah, I see the issue. Okay. All We Imagine is Light also, I thought, like, had a very interesting way of dealing with the themes of its story. What would you say were the themes that stood out to you?
I think the themes were a lot of it about loneliness and kind of displacement.
Yeah, I think displacement was a big one for me.
Yeah.
I think I also think sort of it just felt like the world was hostile towards these three women.
Yeah.
In a very like I mean, as subtle as it was obvious, I think.
Yeah.
Um, Especially with the Anu character, the one that's like trying to sleep with her boyfriend. I just felt like that was such a unique. Well, I by unique I mean like in the film like sphere. It's such a unique like problem she has, and but yet it's such a relatable like um understandable um like issue she's dealing with. So I thought that's where it excels in like it never it never felt like theme was being like shoved down our throats. It never felt like the film was like trying to preach. It
Yep.
was always it was just like super subtle, very underhanded, and I thought it was dealt with very delicately.
I agree. And I think that when you have every single one of these characters, I think they deal with similar themes
Mm-hmm.
in different ways. Bella, she's obviously feeling both lonely and displaced because she's in this big city. And I believe she hadn't been there her whole life, right? She kind of
Mm-hmm.
got there
Yeah,
after marriage.
yeah, yeah.
But then her husband just abandoned her and went to Germany.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Anu, she's not lonely in the sense that she has someone to be. She has someone in her life. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but then that person, that the guy, I believe Shiaz is his name,
Mm-hmm.
is Muslim, um, and that interfaith marriages are not are kind of frowned upon. There's even a moment where she's looking at uh, the profiles that her mom sends to her, and they're laughing about it. And he says, "Hey, what if I make a fake profile with a Hindu name?"
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so again, it's there is that loneliness where even though she is not alone with him, she is
Mm-hmm.
alone in the sense that she can only be with him when they
Mm-hmm.
are alone.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, Parvati is being evicted
Addicted.
from her home because she doesn't have like the proper paperwork,
Mm-hmm.
and it's being gentrified.
Yeah. Gentrification was an interesting choice of words there, but yes. I thought Parvati's story was very heartbreaking because when she said, like, they're sitting with that lawyer, and then she's like, I've lived here for like 22 years or something. And
Yep.
he's just like, yeah, but like, you don't have the papers, there's nothing we can do about it. Um, I thought that was super strong.
I want to talk about the cinematography in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the cinematography is both beautiful and but it's also a little bit dirty
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that, and I think that's intentional. First of all, I mean, yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. The lighting, all that, everything, all that works. And then the dirtiness that I'm talking about is, again, going back to when I was comparing the shine that Love Ladies had versus this one, not having that. I think it did feel a little bit intentional just to show that hey, this there's this awesome city in Mumbai, and we always think of it for the beaches and the skyscrapers, but um, it's not like there's greatness, but there's also stuff in it that's not so great. And I think even the cinematography represents that because even though it's beautiful, there is a dirtiness in the lens,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think it just enhances the themes even more.
I think so. I think that some of the choices they made, in terms of like kind of where they put their attention, um, like I thought was really cool. The one that comes to mind is when she's standing. I mean, this is the trailer shot. This was their big like poster shot where she's standing in the train and she's just looking in
Yeah.
like towards her side. I think in that shot, like as the camera stays on her, we kind of just see things happen around her. I thought that's like a good example of like what you were talking about, which is that yes, all of these are extremely well thought out and like structured, and like a lot of like effort was put into crafting each one of these frames. The same amount of effort was
Mhm.
put into like making them feel as real as possible.
Yeah.
Was there anything that didn't work for you in this film?
Um, Honestly, no. I think this is just about a perfect film for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like that I have heard come from many places. Like a lot of people have said that about this film. I did think that the pacing was a little bit slow for me. It felt like they held almost every scene like just maybe a beat or so too long. Um, it just felt like this could have been a tight 90 minutes, but the film is at like 120 now, I think.
Mhm.
But outside of that, I thought everything else was great. I think the the only reason the pacing felt a little bit slow for me was because I think I just like I don't know, the characters and the world, everything is so like relatable and familiar to me. It's just like I was like, I get it. Like I didn't need those extra few minutes to understand these characters. I didn't need those extra few seconds to like figure out what they're doing or like where they are. Like it just felt like like that was almost meant as exposition to sort of sit with these people. And personally, I just didn't need those. I just didn't need
I,
that
I've s-
exposition. Yeah.
I've seen some people online say that. Specifically, I heard someone say that this feels like an art film more than something exciting. I don't necessarily see that being a bad thing, but I've
Yeah.
definitely seen that opinion. It worked for me because um, I think it's a little bit what I had said. I think the part of the reason why it feels um, part of the reason why it feels like I'm watching real people is because of the pacing. I
Hmm.
think it isn't just um, the point of the scene happens, and then instead of cutting it, like you said, they do hold for a beat or two. And I just think that it allows the movie to almost kind of wash over me.
Hmm.
And and personally, I loved it. Like
Hmm.
um, I thought the pacing was necessary for what they were going for.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I see the conversation. I see what people mean when they say that it feels like an art film more than something exciting. Because I think very often the attitude towards films, and this is like my attitude towards films, is that I go into the movie theater or wherever and I'm like, okay, now take me on a ride. Sometimes that's an exciting ride. Sometimes it's like I don't know. Sometimes it's like a cool lazy river
Mhm.
kind of ride, you know.
Yeah,
So I can like I definitely see the argument for it feeling more like an art film. That wasn't really an issue for me. It was still like it was still an interesting watch, and I thought that I had I felt connected to the characters, and I cared for their journey, and really that's kind of what the film what most films like want to do, right?
yeah,
So yeah, I mean it was a solid watch. Um,
yeah. I want to talk about the use of Mumbai as a
mhm,
setting.
mhm,
Um, I think it was really smart because I think it actually just further reinforces these because even in um, one of the biggest cities, not just in the country, is it the biggest city in the country, at least population wise?
I would say so.
Or
It is, I think,
okay,
yeah.
it's either that or Delhi,
Right.
um, and um, and it's also probably one of the most populated cities in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And even even within that city, to feel uh, the fact that these characters feel that sense of loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then again, showing that there is a systemic issue, especially when it comes to class. I mean, there's a billboard that reads, "Class is a privilege reserved for the privileged."
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of commentary here in this film.
yeah, I think this is the perfect kind of setting for this film.
Mm-hmm. The
And
fit. Sorry, go on.
no, and I was just gonna say, I think the movie really uses full use of it.
Yeah, the city feels like a living, breathing like element of their lives. Um, and like I feel like that's a hard thing to pull off because I have seen films where like they'll talk over and over about a city. Um, they'll like romanticize the place they're in, but it
Yep.
doesn't feel like a part of that. Like Emily in Paris, I think is a great example. Like that film is, I mean, that show is like very much about like, oh, like being Parisian and like living here and all that stuff. But it doesn't, but over there, it just feels like a film set in this place as opposed to in All We Imagine as Light, where it feels like the film is happening because of the city. Like it's just as much a part of the plot as every other
Yep.
element. One of my favorite elements of the film was the dialogue, which I think touches upon, the setting or the world of the film itself. I really like that they didn't do the thing where, you know, how in films they just have like the characters speak in one language, even though they're definitely in a multicultural like setting.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that this film didn't do that. It was really cool to see, like, because there was Marathi, there was Hindi, there was Malayalam. I'm sure that there was English here and there. It just
Yeah.
it felt like an immersive. It again, like the world building I think was solid. So this dialogue choice kind of like immersed me further into the story, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah. And it makes sense. In the city of Mumbai, it's,
Mm-hmm.
the city of dreams where people travel to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like almost like how LA is in America is what Mumbai is
Yeah,
to India.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good comparison.
All right, so it's time for our scores. And as a reminder, or in case you're new, the way that we score things is on the script coverage scale. There's pass, consider, and recommend. Essentially, what that means is pass, we don't think the movie's very good. Consider, if we think it's uh, pretty good, but not necessarily great. And recommend when we think it's a great movie. As a reminder, this is not an actual recommendation, it's just a score. With that said, how would you score All We Imagine Is Light?
I mean, it's a solid recommend from me, in case you couldn't tell.
um, and in case you couldn't tell about my score, when I said this movie is near perfect, yeah, it's also a recommend for me.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah,
one of
solid film.
one of the best movies of the year.
Hmm.
Um, big fumble by the Film Board of India.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you recommend to someone who enjoys films like All We Imagine Is Light?
So I'm gonna actually recommend Gully Boy uh, from 2017. The reason why I recommend this is because that's another movie that is set in Mumbai. It's about someone who has dreams. Although I believe he was born and raised in Mumbai a while
Mhm.
instead of
Mhm.
being instead of moving there later. The reason why I bring that up is it's always Mumbai, but it's also similar similar themes about class.
Mhm.
In this, uh, I mean, this movie has the billboard that reads "Class is a privilege reserved for the privileged."
Mhm.
Um, that movie doesn't have a billboard like that, but it does. Social class is definitely there. Um, there's a song in that movie where one of the lines, and I can't remember what exactly it is, so I'm just going to tell you the gist of what
Mhm.
what he was saying. But it's look up in the sky and you see the rich in their skyscrapers, and then you look down and you will see at that very same building um, someone begging
Mhm.
to make ends meet.
Mhm. Yeah. That movie was great. I'm a little bitter about it because that year Super Deluxe was snubbed and Gully Boy was nominated. Uh,
think it's a little bit closer. I don't think it's the same situation because they were within that year they were competing against each other, even within India. Sometimes Super Deluxe won, sometimes Gully Boy won. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean, I just thought Super Deluxe was a better movie, but that's not the point here.
yeah, I like Gully Boy better. So
No, but what I was trying to say is, you're right. There is a lot of commentary on class disparity in Gully Boy. I remember this one scene where he's picking up, like he's the driver, and the
yep,
person he works for is in the back seat, and like I think she's had a breakup or she's upset about something, and like he's like wanting to help clearly, but it's very clear
yep,
that he can't even extend his hand to help her just because of the
yeah.
disparity.
That's
Good
the song I
movie.
was actually referring to because
Hmm.
there's a poem and then later
Yeah.
that same poem becomes a song.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's a great movie. I'm going to recommend this Tamil film called Aruvi. I think it's available on YouTube right now. I don't know who put it up there, but it was a great film. It's about this girl who's diagnosed with HIV and how sort of the society isolates her because of it, and sort of how her life gets turned upside down once she has this diagnosis. It's a great movie, worth everyone's time. So if you have the chance, please check it out. It's called Aruvi.
You said that's on YouTube?
Think so, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Gully Boy is on Prime, just in case anyone hasn't seen it or wants to rewatch it.
Yeah. All right. What else have you been watching?
Um, let's see, what did I? Oh, okay, I know what I watched. The movie that had I seen this would have ended up as number one on my top 10 list. Sonic the
Mhm.
Hedgehog 3. Come on. Um,
Ah.
in all seriousness, I thought this was the best of the three Sonic movies. One was fine. Uh, two I did not like. Three there were moments of there were moments that were good. Some
Mhm.
moments weren't even great, and then random slapstick uh, comedy thrown in,
Mhm.
which would take me out of the movie continuously. But um, I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected it to. And
Mhm.
if you're a fan of the Sonic games, which I am, then I think you would actually enjoy this movie.
Yeah. I haven't watched it. I was not a fan of Sonic 2. But I'm glad you had a nice time.
Oh,
I've been watching the show called AP Bio.
I
Um,
love that show.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I wasn't very impressed with the pilot. I was actually very like mid on the pilot, but like, I was just like, okay, I started it, I'm just gonna watch it. But like as the show started going on, it really grew on me, and it's
Yeah,
hilarious. I love that show. Um, yeah, that's what I've been watching. I think it's on Netflix in case anyone wants to check it out.
yeah. That's when Dennis becomes an AP Bio teacher. So he's basically Dennis.
He is, and you see, I feel like you just see him progress, like he becomes more and more Dennis as the
Yep.
show like progresses.
So it's the prequel.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to finish it?
Sure. All right. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of Pages Pixels. Um, we have new episodes every week, and I'm Rohan,
I'm Kirtana.
and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.